Bruce smiled. I'm a software developer, he said. Well-to-do, about 20. I have a studly body, don't you think?
This is I Don't Even Own a Television, Atlanta Nights.
There are books that are good, there are books that are bad. There's some books so fucking awful you wish you never had read them at all. 'Cause a novel can ruin your life. Hey buddy, I don't even own a television.
All right, greetings. Welcome to I Don't Even Own a Television, the only book podcast with muscles pulsing and rippling like waves under a thin blanket of tanned skin. My name is stuffy software developer J.W. Friedman, and with me, as always...
Howdy, I'm Chris Clsn, and I usually like to pronounce it Hotlanta.
Oh no, you're one of those. People in Atlanta will fuck you up for that, man.
I got it from a late 70s Blue Oyster Cult live album.
Oh, definitely the place to go to get your up-to-date cultural details.
Nothing more
Atlanta
relevant.
Nights, baby. Woo!
Nothing more relevant in 2020 Atlanta than late 70s Blue Oyster Cult, for sure.
Yeah. So, we're taking a break from our traditional format here, and we're talking about something that some of you may be familiar about. This is definitely a very notorious artifact amongst a very small group of people. So if you already know about Atlanta Nights, I'm hoping that maybe you can glean a little more information about it from this and also be entertained by it. If you don't know about Atlanta Nights, forgive my Twitter parlance, but buckle the fuck up because we're going on a wild ride.
And for those of you scoring at home, first off, congratulations. Second of all, the roles of people who know anything about Atlanta Nights and people who know absolutely nothing about Atlanta Nights will be played respectively this episode by J.W. Friedman, Studley software developer, and me, guy who thinks Hotlanta jokes are funny, respectively. So,
now,
I read this thing, and I still don't know what the fuck is happening.
And that's kind of the intent. I want to say before we get started, I was not an aficionado of this book. I had no idea it existed until a friend of mine clued me in about it, and apparently in some circles it has the same sort of reputation as The Eye of Argon. So this is very much a bad book. However, this was written to be intentionally bad, which is a rule that we never usually break. But there's just so much about the story behind this book and the book itself that is hilarious and weird that we felt the need to take a little break from the way we normally do the show and talk to you about Atlanta Nights.
And let's be honest here, we just did 2 consecutive episodes about books entitled Dachshund Through the Snow. I think if anybody is entitled to break format, in this case by talking about a book that's not called Dachshund Through the Snow, it's us.
Very, very true. So, I guess before we go any further, we should get into it. Atlanta Nights is bad on purpose. And it's bad on purpose with a mission. The mission is questionable in its credibility and maybe the very definition of tilting at windmills, but it is what it is, and we're going to talk about it a little bit. But first, I think we need to give you an idea of what this book is and how it reads. And I know, Clsn, you came prepared with a brief summation of each chapter in this book, and I think we both have a few juicy quotes that we'd like to give you along the way. So why don't you go ahead and start us off?
Okay, so partly as an exercise in trying to parse this basically unparsable artifact, quite early on, I just started writing a quick one-liner about every chapter. So here is my sort of attempt to breadcrumb myself through this book, chapter by chapter. And I hate to steal a line from you, Jay, but I'm going to have to reiterate that you're going to want to buckle up, because there aren't 1 or 2 chapters in this book-like object. There are, in fact, 40 chapters in this book-like artifact, and I'm going to try to, say a sentence or less, but that's still 40 sentences. So, apologies.
Yeah, and I'll be interrupting like crazy, so don't worry. It'll only take 15 minutes or so. No big deal.
Rad. Also, how long did it take you to read this thing, Jay?
It took me... I don't know if I could really qualify as what I did as reading as much as experiencing, but...
yeah, fair.
It definitely took me about, I'd say, 3 sittings to fully absorb the information inside the pages of Atlanta Nights. I will say I went down very deep rabbit holes doing research about Atlanta Nights, but that doesn't count. But all in all, I spent altogether too long reading and thinking about this book.
Same. This took me a weird amount of time for a stunt project. Anywho, let's get started. Beginning with chapter 1. Bruce wakes up in a hospital and meets a sexy nurse. 2. Injured Bruce gets a lift from his friend Isidore and says hi to his girlfriend, sexy Penelope. 3. Penny and Yvonne chat and meet bisexual heartthrob and masseuse at the club, Steve.
He has warm hands. He has very warm hands that the ladies and the dudes love.
Wow.
It's mentioned several times, the warmth of his hands.
4. Andrew Isaacs investigates Richard Isaacs and a sexy... I can't read my handwriting. Maybe sexy Monica. It probably doesn't matter. 5. Stephen
It doesn't matter. Her name changes from chapter to chapter, which is part of the joy of this book.
Indeed. Heartthrob Stephen, the sexy masseuse, gets sexy with the sexy nurse. 6. Sexy book with metaphors time. 7. Women talk about feelings. See Elaine from Airplane. I should digress here. Here,
that is so on point.
And this cost me a huge amount of time because I got myself frightened that I was going to miscite Elaine from Airplane, so I looked it up on the Internet Movie Database and discovered that there are people in this world who watched Airplane and thought to themselves, there are factual errors in the film Airplane, and I need to let the world know. And I spent probably an hour going through those factual errors and emailing and texting all and sundry about how upset I was by this practice.
Apparently you've never looked at IMDb for a comedy because people love to do that, and I will never understand that urge. Like, people will literally list intentional jokes as factual errors, and it's like, congratulations, you have a Sherlock Holmes pipe made of plastic that you blow bubbles out of, and I'm sure you look very sophisticated while you're sitting on IMDb going, well, in Bumblebee, when John Cena first appears, his shirt says, "You can't see me," which is actually a John Cena wrestling t-shirt.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It would be like, what was the really stupid Transformers one, which would be like, actually, giant robots did not help King Arthur become king of the Britons. It's like,
factual error. The robot actually served cooler dukes than Anthony Hopkins. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. Anywho, okay. Sorry. Digression over. Chapter 8. Sex and high finance and fine dining. 9. A sexy date at a restaurant. 10. Irene and the masseuse get adjectival at the polo club. 10. Bruce and Penelope merge more than once. 11. Bruce burns the burgers. Isidore gets the vegetarian girl Penny. 12. Bruce and Callie get married. Sexy supporting characters bone. 13. Rich guys eat, drink, and conspire. 14. Penny hears about the wedding. 15. Yvonne and Richard hook up with banter. 16.
Interesting. Put a pin in that. I will right now. Continue.
16. Yvonne and her boobs go shopping for seduction. 17. Literally a repeat of chapter 4, word for word. 18.
That is correct.
18. The widow, Callie Archer and Richard Isaacs spar and negotiate. 19. Arthur Nance meets up with Callie Archer, the widow, and at a party they meet Isaac Stevens and Irene Stevens, who used to sleep with Henry Archer, three-way-ishly. 20. Callie and Yvonne discover they're both sleeping with Rory. 21, I forgot to write down. 22, Andrew Venice, who killed Henry Archer. Yvonne tells Andrew Callie was sleeping with Arthur, who was Bruce's doctor after the accident. Callie is Bruce's little sister.
Can I interrupt for 1 second?
Sure.
So have you noticed by this point that the characters' names change from chapter to chapter?
I can't tell if it's the same characters or if the naming practices are deliberately, like, impossible to parse. So there's a doctor named, like, Arthur Nance or something. The detective is Andrew Venice, which is an objectively amazing name. There's a character named Isaac. There's also a character named Richard Isaacs.
Yeah, and some of the characters do change names despite being the same characters. Like one, I can't remember a good particular example, but one character named Yvonne, who is somebody's girlfriend, her name changes to like Veronica later in the book, and it's just never mentioned.
Oh shit, I might have missed that.
Yeah, it's easy to miss if you're not paying attention for it. But anyway, sorry, keep going.
It's also basically impossible to keep track of the characters, as should be obvious by now, because there's really nothing differentiating any of them. Chapter 23, Skip is distasteful. Chapter 24, Andrew Venice accuses Irene of murdering Henry Archer. 25, Irene gets recruited into porn and goes to a baseball game with Andrew and Richard Isaacs, a police informant. 26, Callie and Yvonne negotiate. 27, Bruce discovers his accident and Henry's accident that killed him happened at the same time, feeds a cat, and takes a shower. 28, Irene discovers Henry was a serial killer who was going to break up with her for nurse Margaret Eastman. 29.
Whose name has also changed by this point in the book.
29. Bruce is in the hospital and wants answers from Arthur. He won't get them. He also wants to get to know a sexy nurse named Margaret a little better. 30. Andrew Venice eavesdrops on Arthur Nance, Isaac Stevens, Rory Edwards, and Richard Isaacs. 31. Big reveal. Bruce is black and his white adoptive parents affected some black stereotypes to raise him. Here, It's good to remember that the book is not actually intended to be read. We will get to that later. It is intended to make someone look like an asshole. That said, the world did not need this chapter in it, nor this particular joke in it. Nor do I think the prospect of making somebody look like an asshole really justifies this one or a couple of the other more distasteful chapters. I shall step off my soapbox now.
Agree, but it should be noted that this is not a big reveal. This is a swap. The character of Richard was a Caucasian man up until this chapter, and now suddenly is not. I'm not saying that makes it any better. It's just a complete and total lack of continuity in the grandest and most shocking and obnoxious way possible. So.
Yeah.
He's even described earlier as having light skin, light tanned, white skin, and blonde hair. So, yeah, do what you must. But, yeah, continue.
32. Andrew interviews Yvonne over a roast beef sandwich at Hardee's. 33. Isidore, who is now a lady, shoots Stephen by mistake. 34 is a chapter written by a random text generator. 35. Steve Suffern tries to blackmail Isaacs.
I'm sorry. You have to stop. Just thinking about that makes me laugh so hard. That there's an entire chapter in this book written by a piece of software called the Bonsai Story Maker.
If anybody emails us, I will go ahead and just read that chapter as a bonus. But I'll only do that if we get an email about it.
Best of luck.
Thank you. 35. Steve tries to blackmail Isaacs, who pulls strings to get him fired from the club. 36. Andrew and Margaret are getting married. 37. Callie catches Henry having an affair. 38. Arthur Nance accuses Irene. And then there's some real ugly stuff about that Isidore gender change a couple chapters ago. 39. Very racist prison scene. 40. Irene shoots Rory and Penelope, and Isaac gets ready to run away with Bruce. 41. I forgot to write this down, but Richard Isaacs contemplates self-harm, decides against it. And that is Atlanta Nights.
Okay, so that is a book, I think.
It's a book-like object. It's, I think, the most like object of any book-like object we've ever encountered.
Yeah. So, I guess it's time to kind of pull back the curtain and talk about this a little bit. Essentially, those of you who are familiar with, books in the internet age, and even before the internet age, actually, you probably heard of the concept of vanity presses. This is as opposed to self-publishing. There are companies out there that will lend your title, your book, an air of credibility by publishing your book under their company. This company that put out Atlanta Nights, or was going to put out Atlanta Nights, was called Publish America. And they were very obviously a vanity press. But they came under a lot of scrutiny because they repeatedly claimed in press releases and stuff that they were not a vanity press, despite releasing a lot of books that contained a lot of questionable writing, spelling errors, grammatical issues, lack of story, etc., etc. Basically, the way it would work is you would submit your manuscript to them. They'd offer you an advance of $1, which technically keeps them from being a vanity press because they were paying out advances like a publishing deal would. But it was $1.
Ooh.
And then they'd pay out royalties based on a sliding scale of 8 to 12% of copies sold. Now, that sounds kind of generous. But the deal here is that they also, the way they made most of their money was by overpricing these books to the extent of just about, I'd say, double what you would pay or what a bookstore would pay for like the latest James Patterson bestseller, while simultaneously offering them to the authors for purchase at a discount of 10 to 20%. So if you do the math there, what you have is
hold on. Let me try this. So the book is twice as expensive as it should be, but I get it for 20% off.
Exactly.
That means
what a
I'm
deal.
paying 200% too much for it.
Yes. And, they give you price breaks as it goes down up until you order 20, which is at that point you're paying the lowest possible amount you can pay. So they'd routinely encourage their authors to go out and buy many, many copies of their own book from their website and sell them themselves to their local bookstores, to their families and friends, etc., etc. So I know, you have a history in being a fan of music, so this is probably all sounding a little familiar to you. Like, have you ever been to one of those shows where there's like 15 bands playing in 4 hours and they all are wildly different genres, and you're like, how the fuck did this happen? Because one of your friends like sold you a ticket?
One of your friends who was in one of those 15 bands, perhaps?
Yes, exactly. There's a company called Afton that's really well known for this. There's a lot of companies. In the world of music, it's called pay-to-play. And what it essentially is these companies will just take a demo, probably not listen to it, then offer you a slot on a showcase, quote-unquote, provided you buy X number of tickets at cost, and then sell them to people for however much you want. So you can make as much money as you want, provided you can trick people into buying the 50 tickets that you were forced to buy from the promoter in order to perform. Now, this sounds like a fair deal, right? This is how real shows get booked.
Or in the world of, I believe, stand-up comedy, there's a similar scam. I mean, a similar capitalist enterprise where you're required to front money for 20 tickets, and then alienate your family and friends by causing them to not only buy the tickets off you, but then be faced with 2 drink minimums for shitty drinks at absurd markups.
Yep. And much like these pay-to-play scams, it's also worth noticing that, or noting that Publish America did absolutely zero PR work, basically, and it would encourage you to promote your own book that they had published, which is, something no self-respecting publisher would do because most real publishers invest in properties that they think they can make money on if they get publicity for it. Not so with Publish America. They basically say, okay, we'll sell you some books. You're on your own. You get 8% royalties of anything we sell. You can keep all the money from the books that you bought at 200% of what a normal book would cost. There's a lot of shady shit going on here.
Well, and let me say one other thing that actual publishers tend to invest in: the services of professional editors.
Oh, well, we'll get to that too, because it just keeps getting better and better. They also charge authors exorbitant amounts of money for any editorial work that they quote unquote deem fitting, which is completely cold-blooded once you've seen the type of stuff they accept, like what we just talked about. That book doesn't need to be edited. That book needs to be sliced apart, and they're going to charge you for that.
Well, I think what happened to this book is, I could be wrong about this, but it has very much a feel, especially with all the time jumps, of something that was sloppily plotted in linear order, and then a bunch of the chapters were literally shuffled.
You're close. We'll get there when we talk a little bit more about the book. But I want to finish up with just the intro to Publish America real quick here. They do some of their own PR work, or did do some of their own PR work. However, most of their PR work involved you paying them to be included on it. So they had a booth that they'd go and set up at various small-time conventions where it's cheap to set up a booth. And then if you paid them $100 per appearance, they would have your book amongst a bunch of other random books that have nothing to do with each other. And, yep, that sounds like a great deal. And, so they were basically bloodthirsty bastards, Publish America was.
Did I ever tell you my story about the one time I went to Comic-Con and how I got a book?
No.
The one time I went to Comic-Con? It's quick. So I went to Comic-Con once. I think it was 2008, if memory serves. Good year. Not for me, but, I assume somebody thought 2008 was a good year. I'm wandering around Comic-Con, and I'm on some aisle or other, and some dude is sort of standing out in front of a booth, like kind of half in the aisle, as they do. And, I kind of nod, he kind of nods, and I'm just within arm's reach. I don't intend to stop and look at his booth, and he just holds a book out saying, "Vampire?" And I said, "Sure." And I grabbed the book and kept on going. Fast forward a couple of months later, I'm flipping through this. I'm reading this book. I'm not flipping through. I'm flat out fucking reading this book. And it's about this extremely sexy Roman vampire who is being chased by a saucy, headstrong, too stubborn for her own good, hot-blooded New Orleans girl who I think runs a magic shop. And this book was making no sense because instead of being about cool magic and vampire stuff, they kept stopping to have long conversations about feelings, and there was more boning than fighting. And I'm 200 pages in, and I look up and I'm like, but I believe I'm reading a romance novel. And then I was like, okay, fine, and finished it. And I know what that book is. And someday, we're going to do it on this show.
I'm just going to start standing outside of random places when people walk by, go, vampire, and see what happens.
I am just saying that is a dynamite sales pitch. I'm not even mad about it, you know?
I can't blame you at all. Now it's time to talk about our other players in this drama. Science fiction and...
Bruce,
Sorry?
Isaac, Penelope...
Yeah, Yvonne.
Yvonne, Cassie.
No, I'm talking about the science fiction and fantasy writers of America. I know you had something to say about this in general, so you should probably get that off of your chest here.
Well, I don't know much about this. So you had found this, sent me a link, and said, "Holy shit! You can get the book at this link. Check it out. Let me know if you think it sounds fun." I think I literally read 2/3 of the page that contained the link to the PDF, like 2 pages of the PDF, and was like, "Oh, hell yes." Because I'm just going to read you the first page of the PDF, and you'll know why I said that, because I worry that we might have lost the listeners. Here is the first page in its entirety.
Are you saying I'm boring? I'm not boring.
No, I just mean that they might, they might think that this book does not deserve this attention, and I'm going to prove to them by reading them about 45 words that it does deserve attention.
Oh, okay.
Here's the first page.
I'm not boring.
Pain. Whispering voices. Pain. 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 Need pee. New pain. What are they sticking in me? Sleep. Pain. Whispering noises. As you know, Nurse Eastman, the government spooks controlling this hospital will not permit me to give this patient the care I think he needs. Yes, doctor. The breath. The voice was breathy, sweet, so sweet and sexy. And I think I had gotten to about spooks before I was reaching for my phone to text back, "Yeah, I think this will do great."
Yeah, it's very, I hate to flog this dead horse, but it's very Garth Marenghi for sure.
Oh, it's so Garth Marenghi. But so this is all I knew, and about, like I said, 2/3 of the page that surrounds that link, and that page was like, "Folks, look, there's this publisher, they're bad, they said they weren't a vanity press, we knew they were, we set out to write the worst book ever, because we knew they'd accept it, so we can prove to them, and prove to you, that they are a vanity press, here's that book." While I kind of liked the premise, there was a moment I had in the shower later where I was like, on one hand, I can imagine this as being like the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers Guild standing up for its members and trying to protect them from a predatory business model. On the other hand, I could also see it as a potentially kind of gatekeepy kind of enterprise, and kind of punching down at... not punching down at the publisher, but punching down at the people who had been taken advantage of by the publisher, if that makes sense.
I think a little bit of both. It's the SFWA, as they're known, definitely a somewhat salty bunch. But they do write a blog that's still published to this day, I believe, called Writers Beware, that warns aspiring authors about vanity presses that are masquerading as traditional publishing houses and other sort of scams like that. And generally they write about things that are written to them, like complaints from people who have been scammed by these people. And I guess Publish America routinely was the number 1 ranking place that they'd get complaints about.
Oh,
so
okay.
they started this campaign to kind of discredit the company and expose them for what they were. Around the same time that they were getting all these complaints, some of the authors were filing class action lawsuits and stuff against Publish America. And Publish America decided, and later on when we talk about their website, which everyone should visit, I'll give the address later, their response to all of this was to start their own blog called Author's Market, which pretty much just consists of entire posts designed to disparage the genres of sci-fi and fantasy in general. I'm going to read a couple quotes here. Sci-fi and fantasy writers have it easy. It's unfair, but such is life. As a rule of thumb, the quality bar for sci-fi and fantasy is a lot lower than for other fiction. Therefore, beware of published authors who are self-crowned writing experts. When they tell you what to do and what not to do in getting your book published, always first ask them what genre they write. If it's sci-fi or fantasy, run. They have no clue.
Ouch.
Or here's another one. But alas, the sci-fi and fantasy genres have also attracted some of the lesser gods, writers who erroneously believe that sci-fi, because it's set in a distant future, does not require believable storylines, or that fantasy, because it is set in conditions that have never existed, does not need believable everyday characters. Obviously, and fortunately, there are not too many of them, but the ones who are indeed not ashamed to be seen as literary parasites and plagiarists are usually the loudest, just like the proverbial wheel that needs the most grease. And they have about, 20 blog posts that are nothing like but that. So they basically launched a full-on, what's the opposite of a charm campaign?
I believe that is known as low road messaging, Jay.
Okay. So at this point, I believe loggerheads were reached. And surprisingly, however, the person who came up with the idea to write this book was not a member of the SFWA. He's a fellow named James McDonald. There's not a lot available about him online, but he just decided that it would be fun and possibly, I get the feeling he thinks of himself as a bit of a crusader, and he decided to organize what he referred to as a sting operation and recruit a bunch of other writers to write one chapter each for the world's worst possible novel, and see if Publish America would accept their manuscript. So when you said it was shuffled, that is actually not correct, but each chapter is written by a different person, except for obviously the two chapters that are identical and the one that was written by a computer.
Right. Okay, so I know it says that. I read it, and I don't buy it. I think there are at most 4 different hands at work here, but that's just that's just because I believe that my pattern making brain is far more powerful than your quotidian actual existing reality, Jay.
I think that might be a little bit of both, because I found a list of all of the authors. Only 6 or 7 of them were hyperlinked to having anything else published, so a lot of them are pseudonyms, and some of them are very, very hard to believe are real names, like Alan Steele and things like that. But either way, yeah, they submitted the book in 2004 and were offered a publishing deal.
Okay, so this was 2004, because that's actually one of the more piquant things about reading it is set in 2004, but it takes quite a while for that to become clear.
It was written, I think, started in 2002, and by the time everybody finished, it was 2004. But there were rules. No one could take more than a weekend to write their chapter, things like that. And, it was kind of like set up almost like a NaNoWriMo kind of thing, supposedly, depending on how much of the origin story you believe. And everybody got a loose outline of the chapter they were supposed to write, but nobody was allowed to read anything any of the other authors had written when they started their chapter until the entire book was complete. So that may have something to do with the names changing and the characterizations being wildly different, or it may just be a load of bullshit, depending on what you want to believe. I am definitely the Mulder in this situation. I have the big poster with the UFO on it because I want to believe that was true.
The funny thing is, no matter how many hands were involved, like, there's definitely a lot of shared material. Like, there's a pretty clear theory of bad prose at play in this book that they all sort of buy into. It involves stringing a lot of adjectives together. It involves thesaurus abuse to the point where you're using slightly inappropriate words because you don't really know what they mean. It involves a lot of needless detail.
There's also a lot of things, though, that I fall back on when I'm writing bad on purpose, like pointless repetition and the omnipotent he knew that because blank, which is one of my favorite bad writing tricks. So I could definitely see this being organic, but I can also see where you're coming from. So I'm gonna just ride that rail, I guess.
I mean, no, even if they all agree, it does make kind of an organic whole, which is cool. The one thing that was most puzzling to me, so I'm just going to put this question to you, Jay.
Okay.
Do you think that anybody involved with this at any point allowed the mission to creep from writing a bad book on purpose to show that a publisher was a predatory vanity press, creep from that, and the mission to creep to making fun of books that people who don't read science fiction read?
I think that's definitely the case, and I think there are also a couple people who are very obviously just having fun, which those are the best chapters.
Oh, that's very true.
For sure. But yeah, I don't think everybody kind of went into it with the same Crusader-like mentality that Mr. McDonald had in mind when he kind of created the project. Yeah,
so I don't know. It was an interesting thing, and this will probably make more sense after we've read you all a little bit more of this delightful artifact. But while there is a pretty clear theory of bad prose that's shared, I'm not quite sure I understand the theory of a bad book at play. But the people in this definitely seem to think that a bad book has an awful lot of sex. A bad book mostly takes place in restaurants, especially the middle third. I think every scene in the middle third of the book is set in a restaurant of some kind.
They're all restaurants with French names too.
Yeah.
I think it would be a good time just to take a quick break here for each of us to read a highlighted section of the book, because you made me realize some people might be getting kind of bored of just hearing us talk about it. So let's each read one of our favorite paragraphs. Can I go first?
I wish that you would.
Okay. Do you ever try to forget things, Stephen? The sexy nurse asked him. All the time, but I don't forget you. You are not forgettable. She turned her head around and smiled at him. That smile made her look younger, like she was a teenager. It was pretty, with straight white teeth. She didn't wear much lipstick, but he liked it that way. Probably for her job. I'm Margaret. I didn't forget you either, even though it was days ago at the hospital. You are easy to remember. He smiled lazily at her, glad that he worked out, because it must be his abs and his muscles that made him so easy to remember.
That's incredible. I think I'm actually... it's baffling to me. We're so often within just a few pages. I think I'm pretty close to where you were, but this just leapt out to me as something that I really wanted to read you all. Andrew Venice had heard many contralto voices before, but none attached to a woman as beautiful as the one standing before him right then. Blue-eyed, blonde-haired, and round in all the right places, Irene Stevens, the mistress of the burnt and blackened millionaire industrialist and ex-bodybuilder Henry Archer, was a sight that sent a shiver down his rock-solid 40-year-old body. What that now blackened old geezer had seen in this 20-year-old beauty was clear. What she had seen in him was his money.
Ugh.
And I think that's actually pretty good. There's another sentence that I think is actually pretty good. I'm just going to read a fragment of it. It goes, skin-tight emerald cocktail gown cut so low it made a man want to punch his fist at the sky and shout, "Wee-ha!"
So I forget which one it was, but one of the authors of one of the chapters claims that he was so drunk when he wrote it, he doesn't remember doing so. Yeah. So anyway, back to the story, folks. The original plan was they were actually going to have James MacDonald signed this contract because he was not known in the literary world and published the book. However, somebody got wise and brought the contract to a lawyer and was like, hey, is this a good idea? And the lawyer is like, this is absolutely not a good idea. They can sue the shit out of you. And so they revealed that it was a hoax.
You can get sued for being a shitty writer? Look out, Dan Brown.
There's all sorts of breach of contract stuff involved in what they were planning on doing, basically acting in bad faith and all this sort of stuff. I don't know the details, but the lawyer was like, yeah, you're fucked if you let them put this out.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense, but please acknowledge my Dan Brown joke.
It was a good Dan Brown joke. Dan Brown wears white socks with loafers and slacks. I'm not a fan. Anyway.
Oh! Get some Neosporin for that, Dan Brown!
After the hoax was revealed, Publish America did an about-face, retracted their acceptance, and said that the novel failed to meet their standards because parts of it were gibberish, which kind of implies that no one at the company had even read the book prior to being accused of this sort of fuckery. And I love that so much because there's literally a chapter written by a computer that it's like Radiohead's Fitter Happier, but with more sex. Like, oh.
I'm going to actually just read that. I'm going to read just a paragraph of the computer written thing because this proves that whoever claims to have read this skipped at least one chapter.
Yeah.
Bruce walked around anymore. Some people might ought to her practiced eye at her. I am so silky in braid shoulders. At 66, men with a few feet away form their languid gazes. I know I was hungry, and impaling am lying naked. She slowly made for a man could join you. I know what I ought to take you probably should have. He wants it worriedly. About think what to wear? Like, that's the first two paragraphs of the chapter.
That's also the lyrics to my new song coming out soon, so stay tuned. That really needs to be put to music and put on Patreon.
Literally was kicked out of my first band for being a little too into poetry that sounded like that to write lyrics that the other guys liked.
Okay, so I'm gonna cut to the chase here, but it is worth noting that after all of this happened, they faced a slew of lawsuits and arbitration cases from people who were like, oh shit, I've been taken to the bank, including one where an aspiring author, who I'm not going to name because that's not nice, claimed to have spent $13,000 promoting his book before learning that no bookstores were actually able to order copies because Publish America does not sell direct to book outlets.
Oh.
And surprisingly, they stayed around until 2018. They did change their name to America Star Books at some point, but they kept the same web address and the same website, which is still up to this day. And you should really Google Publish America and look at this website because it's straight out of GeoCities. It's amazing. It has to be seen to believe. They openly brag about the fact that they published over 45,000 authors, which is definitely the mark of quality. And they promise that they'll publish books about literally anything because America and free speech and blah, 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 blah. And the best part, they also sold CBD oil.
Hoaxes and placebos. I mean...
Whoops. No, it's great for joint pain and stuff.
No shade to the CBD enjoyers. I myself have enjoyed some CBD seltzer water and felt quite mellow afterward. So
yeah,
maybe it's
too,
real. I don't know.
I'm not gonna shit. Like when I used to smoke weed, I would smoke high CBD, low THC because I didn't like the getting high feeling, but I liked the lack of anxiety. So I can attest to the fact that I have experienced some positive effects, be they placebo or otherwise. But yeah, so...
And you know what I like about placebo effects, Jay?
What?
The effects.
I don't know. I'm more into no effects myself.
Well, okay, but I'm the guy standing in front of the double-blind placebo study wearing a T-shirt reading, "It's still real to me, damn it."
No, I'm just thinking of like a video of a guy like crying in an auditorium where they're like, it turns out this wasn't actually a drug treatment at all, going, "It's still real to me, damn it." And then the Undertaker busts in. But anyway, sorry.
Sir, you were given a sugar pill. And he's like, it was the greatest thing I'd ever had.
So basically, after all of this book has become a hit with the crowds that attend like sci-fi fantasy conventions. A lot of times they'll stage readings of it, a la Eye of Argon. It's really found a cult following to the point where eventually it was self-published as a charity campaign via Lulu, the print-on-demand service, under the pseudonym Travis T. Do you get it? With all profits going to the SFWA's medical fund. So it's now out of print. You can't buy it new on paperback anymore, but you can get a PDF of it for free if you want to read it. If you Google Atlanta Nights PDF, it's the first result. So this is the end of our twisted tale, and I had a question for you.
Okay. I got a question for you after that, but hit me with your best shot, Ace.
Okay, fire away. To be honest, what's sillier? This book? Preying on gullible people with a GeoCities website and a get-rich-and-famous quick scheme with none of the red tape that surrounds traditional publishing? Paying someone to release your book and then paying them to edit and also paying them to promote it while you pay to promote it yourself? Or getting together with your pals to do a Mod Squad-style sting operation on a vanity press?
I mean,
it's a tough choice. I feel like everybody here is a little silly.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I don't like very many things more than I like the let's all get together and put on a show vibe. And to the extent that this has that, I actually like it quite a bit. I also like, as described, the overall mission, which is make idiots look like assholes, and make assholes look like idiots. In fact, in this case, I guess it is make assholes look like idiots. Anybody claiming to be on the up and up trying to publish this book is, they're telling on themselves. And, I'm no fan of exploitation. There, I said it. Controversial, I know. So I will do this, Jay. I'm going to do the thing that I don't like to do on the show very much. I'm going to reject the premise. I'm going to say, sure, there's silliness in abundance here, but that's not the important part.
What is?
Shit. I was hoping you wouldn't. Hang on, the doorbell's ringing. I gotta. I think the important part is it's good to send up and show up people who are doing bad things. It doesn't sound like it worked, and that's kind of a fucking bummer. There was probably a better way that they could have taken action, but hey, getting 40 of your buddies together to write a bad on purpose chapter every weekend doesn't actually sound like that bad a use of time to me.
No, it kind of sounds fun, actually.
Yeah.
I think ultimately, as far as the choice of who is... I mean, obviously we know who is in the wrong here. It's the publisher. But as far as the silliness factor goes, I think it's best if we leave it up to the listeners to decide for themselves. Because I feel like you could come down many ways on this. But I think ultimately the thing to take home is always read the fine print. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And if a chapter sounds or reads like it was written by a robot, there's a good chance it was. And also all those Twitter jokes where people said, I made a bot do this and it came up with funny phrase here. Yeah, that's bullshit. That's not how they work. And you had a question for me?
I sure do. Now, when I downloaded this, the PDF had as its title stingmanuscript.pdf. Now, assuming the existence of 4 books. 1, a manuscript by or about the wrestler Sting. 2, a manuscript about the movie The Sting. 3,
All right, anyway.
3, a manuscript by or about former police bassist and notable cross-legged sitter next to yoga tantric wife, picture taker, bassist, singer, raconteur, and all too infrequent actor, Sting.
The voice of Captain Planet, it should be pointed out. Note, this entire digression here is based on a misconception I had, and we do correct it later in the show, but I know this is the sort of thing that would get some people's blood boiling if I didn't point it out immediately. Sting was not the voice of Captain Planet, but another character on the show, Captain Planet. Felt the need to punch in and let you all know that we already know, so, just give it some time. We'll get there. Thanks.
What?
Yes.
You're shitting me.
I'm not, and it's really weird because Captain Planet was on a Turner station, so in the credits when it said Sting, I always assumed it was the wrestler Sting, but it's not. It's the musician Sting was the voice of Captain Planet. Now you know.
Did Captain Planet even have an English accent?
No, but he also only ever had like 4 lines total, I think. So
wow. Fuck, my brain is having new things just injected into it as though a scorpion of knowledge had hit me with its
stinger
sting. Yeah. And number 4 would be this manuscript. How sad are you that this is the one you read instead of any of those other 3?
I gotta say, I'm not sad at all. This is way more interesting than another wrestler talking about his troubles, and it's definitely more interesting than fucking Sting, the musician. And I feel like I've read enough Hollywood, on-set oral histories on the internet, which, by the way, they're written, so they're not oral. I'm pretty happy we read this instead. So it turns out actually 3 different voice actors played Captain Planet, but it was Sting from the years 1990 to 92. I wanted to look that up before someone corrected me. The last the last Captain Planet was Malcolm McDowell.
I didn't know Captain Planet was meant to have such a creepy, off-puttingly sexual energy. But if you're going to cast Sting and Malcolm McDowell, that's not appropriate for children.
No, definitely not. But yeah, we should go to break soon. I have a few bullet points here that I just want to roll down. We've talked about most of them, but I did want to talk about two important things we missed. One of them is that the climax of the book, the big reveal, happens right around the middle of the book, which was explicitly outlined by the author to say that all of the plot takes place in a dream. And then the book goes on for about another 70 pages without acknowledging that or even making it part of the plot. So, non-linearly, this book all takes place in a dream. I figured that was worth mentioning. And
wait. What is the big climax part, though?
It's not. I just called it the climax because I can't pronounce the French word. Denouement? I don't know.
My French accent is, if anything, worse than yours. I would say denouement. Sure.
Denouement, yeah. But, it's revealed that this is all just a dream, but then the book just keeps going like it's not. And this is my favorite part. The initials of all of the characters of the book, in the order that they're introduced, spell the phrase, "Publish America is a vanity press."
Okay, now that I like. That is some Oulipo shit right there.
And it's true. I checked. It's absolutely true. So there you go.
Well, also explains some of the structural problems with the book, because you gotta wrench some shit out to make that work.
Change some names along the way, which may explain some of that. But yeah, all my other bullet points we kind of got to. One of my favorites is there are 2 chapter 12s, but no chapter 21. And that chapters 4 and 17 are literally identical.
Right.
That's like my favorite part of the book. I was reading 17 and I'm like, have I had too much to drink? What's going on? And then I realized, like, oh shit, this has all already happened in the exact same words. But yeah, okay, so I think we're done talking about this and the story of this. So we're going to go to break, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to do some segments. But I think they're going to be a lot more heavily loaded with quotes than they usually are, because you, as the listeners, definitely deserve to hear more excerpts from this completely unique piece of literature for which there really is no comparison. So stick around. We're back like that. I did feel the need to mention before we go any further, this book is not without precedent. We may have made it sound like that. The concept of doing a bad on purpose book with multiple authors has been done many times. This is just the only one I can think of that has a distinct vendetta. But obviously, despite what you may think, if you listen to the show regularly, we do actually read books. And so we are familiar with Naked Came the Stranger, which was a 1969 book that was also an effort by multiple writers to write the worst book ever made, chapter by chapter. It, however, was not anywhere near as bad as this, and it didn't have the interesting backstory behind it. So that's why we haven't talked about that, but we have talked about Atlanta Nights. Just wanted to point that out there. And
if I may,
yeah,
a reason I haven't talked about Naked Came the Stranger is because I don't know what it is. So, there's many ways to reach the top of the mountain. And in my case, I have chosen to ride the unicorn named Blissful Ignorance.
Naked Came the Stranger is also very much a satire of a romance novel or erotic literature, or whatever you want to call it. And in a way, it is very much kind of the definition of punching down, because it's a lot of men writing bad romance on purpose, not the Lady Gaga song. But so, yeah, we haven't been doing that, despite the fact that apparently I know it exists and Clsn doesn't. But this book and its weird vendetta was just too much for us to ignore, I think. So we chose to talk about it. But now I think it's time for us to talk about the studliest segment in podcasting history. This is Dramatic Readings.
Dramatic readings. We're gonna make it sound important. Dramatic readings. Yeah, I got some words for you.
Man, my vocal sounds so studly on that song.
Recorded, that song was, like every episode is, completely shirtless.
Yeah, so you can see my tattoo that says in Gothic black letter across my stomach, Studley. So
Can we have your tattooist on the show sometime? That would be great.
They call me Studs McKenzie.
You might say Jay stands athwart the progression of technology with his own rough-hewn body. He's a real Studdite when it comes to adopting new things.
Yeah, they shoot me out of cannons when they need a stud missile. Anyway, would you like to go first? Because mine's really long, and I don't want to make you wait.
Sure, I'm gonna, full disclosure, I'm gonna read kind of a number of these, because fuck it, why not? Life is short.
Play hard.
But I'm gonna start with one that I think is particularly good. At some point, just to give you, the listener, a little context, I texted Jay, is this the horniest comedy? And it's not quite accurate to call this a comedy. Bad on Purpose is not the same thing as funny. Sorry, Family Guy. But there's some overlap. And this is, I think, both Bad on Purpose and funny, and, it must be said, very, very horny.
It's extremely horny. Naked Came the Stranger is a little hornier, but nowhere near as funny.
I mean, yeah, it's hard to, like, this is, I'm not going to read only the sex parts. Again, I said earlier,
but it's hard not,
we're
not
departing from, we're breaking format. But this is very horny. It's hard to imagine any other book really going crotch to crotch with this in terms of horniness levels.
Yeah, baby. Sorry, I couldn't help it.
Oh, behave.
My wife. Anyway, dramatic greetings, yeah.
Yes. Le Bon Ami was busy today, busier than usual. Richard ate here often, usually with other Peachtree Street brokers who he was trying to get info from about deals they were making. It was one of the best, most fashionable bistros in Atlanta, which is why he liked it so much. The service was superb, and the food was pretty good, too. "And so," Richard said as he unfolded his napkin and laid it daintily across his lap, "how are you getting along, now that Henry is gone?" Callie reached into her handbag, pulled out a compact. "As well as could be expected, I suppose," she said, opening it to study her reflection in its mirror. "Oh, I miss him so much, but..." She sniffed, then closed it and tucked it back in her bag. "Well, life must go on, you know. Life must go on." "Yes, it does." She wore a black silk dress today, low-cut, better to expose the generous mounds of her bosom. Callie was a fine-looking woman, Richard had to admit, and the dress left little to his teeming imagination. Her nipples, like the silver dollars he used to collect when he was a kid, pressed against the fabric, arousing him. "Yes, it does indeed. Life must go on." Callie observed his interest. She pouted, looking like the Mona Lisa having a bad day. "Is there a reason why you asked me to come here, Richard?" Then she lowered her voice to a husky contralto. "Or should I call you Dick?" He caught her meaning, found his livid face turning red. "No," he said. "Richard would be just fine, Callie. I was just admiring your dress. From China, isn't it?" "Yes," she said, "from Hong Kong. Henry took me there many years ago for one of his boring business trips. I loved the shops. I think I must have spent hours in them, bung things you can't buy here in America. And he was very generous, too. I think I must have maxed out an American Express Platinum card just on clothes and jewelry. Oh, what a trip that was!" "I can imagine," Richard said. He wondered if the police would be interested in her purchases when she was abroad. He had little doubt that many of them had not been declared with U.S. Customs. But a woman like her wouldn't have had much trouble dealing with lowly customs inspectors, now would she? She would just have smiled and winked and perhaps slipped $100 bill across the counter, and the horny young customs inspector would have let the rich dame pass. Happens all the time. "And it fits you well, too," he added. She glowered at him from across the table. "You're not here to ask me about my wardrobe," Callie said. "What do you really have on your mind? Really?" "Oh, you know." Richard Isaacs crossed his legs casually, like a king sitting upon his throne and examining a peasant who had come to him in supplication. "Don't quote Alice in Wonderland to me," she quietly seethed. Might be my favorite line in the whole book. "You're up to something, and I want to know what it is." Oh, she was a tempestuous little wench, wasn't she? Henry Archer didn't deserve her. Hadn't deserved, he reminded himself. 20 years younger than he was and manipulative as hell's own vixen. But she'd known how to spend his money, didn't she? But now Henry was gone, and Anne's, and she had been left with his considerable fortune, along with his company, and Richard was interested in both. The company, and the widow who controlled it, that is. "I'm wondering what you intend to do with Richard's company," he said, as the waiter returned with the first part of their meal. "Do you intend to keep it, or is it your intent to sell?" She waited, while the waiter, Frederick, placed her salad in front of her, then saved a generous portion of black pepper and Parmesan cheese on top of it. She glared at the plate. "There's anchovy on this," she huffed. "I cannot abide by anchovies."
Then don't order the Caesar salad, stupid. Okay, anyway, sorry.
"Remove it at once, please, and bring me another." "Oui, madame. Anything to please?" The waiter looked annoyed, but he disappeared with the plate and came back a second later with a fresh salad without anchovies.
Yeah, a fresh salad without anchovies, I'm sure.
Yeah. Hot and fresh out the kitchen.
Yeah, they didn't just pick them off and throw them out and maybe replace them with some spittle. Anyway, sorry.
Satisfied, she speared a crouton with her silver fork and shoved it into her mouth. The waiter smirked with disdain, then carefully placed a bowl of New England clam chowder in front of England. It was hot and fragrant, just the way he liked it. "I haven't decided about the company yet," Callie drawled, chewing thoughtfully upon her food. "I suppose I could sell it, but—" She hesitated, daubing at the corners of her eyes with her napkin. "Oh, what would Henry say if I sold the company he struggled so long and hard to build?" "I imagine he would want you to do what was best for you." Once again, Richard found himself examining her cleavage. So soft, so firm, like Florida cantaloupes ripe for the picking. Although she was young enough to be his own child, he found himself wondering what it might be like to have her in bed, to run his hands through her silky black tresses, to knead and stroke and cajole her breasts into submission, to slip his hands between her thighs and explore the damp, warm secrets within. Henry Archer must have done this time and time again when they were married. And Henry had been only a few years younger, and now— No! He couldn't! Once more, Richard found himself becoming aroused, and he fought to keep his mind at the immediate problem in hand. I'm going to skip ahead just a bit. The time to sell is now, Callie, and I'd only too pleased to help, if only you'd let me. Her breasts heaved against the taut fabric of her black dress, and again his eyes fell to them. Yes, she would be grateful. And once she'd properly expressed her gratitude, perhaps his friends in the police department would be grateful to him. Henry's tragic car accident had been too convenient, too swift. Callie Archer had more secrets than what she had hidden beneath her Victoria's Secret lingerie, and all he needed to do was to get at them.
Oh my. Wow.
So many secrets and lies, Jay.
Secrets, lies, and cleavage. Wow. So, I'm going to go on for a while here, too. I'm going to read probably an entire chapter, I think. Because there were so many points where I wanted to stop, and then I'd get 2 paragraphs later and be like, no, I can't stop there. It just keeps getting better. This also, surprisingly, takes place in a restaurant.
I'm serious. They all, for some reason, take place in restaurants. I don't know what it is.
So here we go. The sunlight was very warm on his face and side from the window, and he wondered if he was going to start sweating. Fire and ice, he thought to himself. Too cold air conditioning and too hot sun. I'm being frozen on one side and roasted on the other. I'll be shivering and sweating at the same time. Isaac will think I've got a fever. Fire and ice cream and jalapeno, ice water and steam, cold and hot, freezing on one side and roasting on the other. He felt uncomfortable, like he had the flu and had a fever. It's kind of chilly in here, commiserated Isaac. How come you look so hot? Oh, it's the sunlight, groaned Bruce. I'm boiling on one side and freezing on the other. The waiter brought their appetizers and set them in front of them. More beer? He queried. It's on the house. Sure, quipped Bruce and Isaac together. The waiter refilled their mugs. Hot enough for you? He quipped. Yes, shivered Bruce. I'm boiling on one side and freezing on the other, like fire and ice. Try the cold beer, offered the waiter. That should help cool you down some. Isaac rubbed his pepper and salt beard then brushed back his close-trimmed hair. "Here's to further success with your company," he enjoined. Bruce returned the toast, and they clanged their frosty mugs of dark beer together, then swilled large mouthfuls down. "Ah," declaimed Bruce, "that was good. Cold." They tucked into the appetizers. There was pâté de foie gras and caviar and stuffed mushrooms and truffles and artichoke hearts and pickled eggs and crackers, and they washed it all down with cold frosty dark beer in foamy mugs and sipped their latte. "Ah," exclaimed Bruce, "that was really good. How about some real food now?" "Oh, yeah." "Oh, yes," agreed Isaac. "Some real food would really hit the spot now. Waiter, I'd like a half-pound of rare T-bone steak smothered in mushrooms and onions and a baked potato with cheese and sour cream and bacon bits and steamed baby carrots and corn on the cob." "Yes, sir!" exclaimed the waiter. "And you, Mr. Lucent?" "I'll have a roast chicken stuffed with truffle and cranberry dressing, a baked potato with butter and sour cream, and a side of some baby back ribs." "Yes, sir!" he declaimed and hurried off to the kitchen. Bruce scratched at his neck brace. "Who is that babe I saw you with at the party last week?" he simpered. Isaac rubbed his pepper and salt beard, then brushed back his close-trimmed hair. "That was my daughter, Irene Stevens. She came to the party with me." "Your daughter?" inquired Bruce. "Wow, she was really hot. I'd surely like to get to know her better." "Well," countered Isaac, "that might be arranged, as long as things go all right, you understand." "Cool," quipped Bruce, who was feeling hot on one side and cold on the other. "Fire and ice." Bruce wanted to get out of all of these casts and things first, though, and get all his stitches out. Or maybe not. She might feel more compassionate towards him if she saw him this way first, and that could lead to more passionate fun later. What a hot babe! He could hardly wait to see her with her clothes off. They'd start slow, maybe a game of strip poker or something classy like that, and then once they were ready, they could go right for the brass ring. His slacks tightened, and he winced as one of his stitches pulled out. Bruce rubbed his throbbing crotch where the cast rubbed, and the stitch had pulled out and his pants were too tight now. "So," he inquired, "what did you want to talk about?" Isaac rubbed his pepper and salt beard, then brushed back his close-trimmed hair. "Well," he countered, "you've been very successful with your software company, and I'd like to talk to you about that. I really admire a successful man who makes a lot of money, and you are one, especially as young as you are, to be so successful in making so much money, if you know what I mean. I'd admire that." "Yes," agreed Bruce, "I am doing rather well, and I enjoy making money. Not the money so much as all the things it can buy, all the wonderful things I can do with it. I own half of this town, Trotter's Corner, now, and someday I'd like to own half of Atlanta itself. First, I'm going to name this town, though. I'm going to name it Lucentville. You hear that, everyone? This town is now called Lucentville, and someday Atlanta will be named Lucent City." Everyone in the restaurant cheered, and the waiter brought their food. "More beer?" he carried. "It's on the house." "Sure," they quipped and dug into their food. "Well," chewed Stevens around his steak and potatoes and onions and mushrooms and corn on the cob, "I'd like to invest in your company. I'd like to give you a lot of money so that I can have a part of your company, and I'll introduce you to Irene, too." Bruce scratched at his neck brace. "Well," he gobbled past his roast chicken and baby back ribs. "That sounds quite decent of you. I think I'd like that, and I'm especially looking forward to getting to know Irene Stevens better, if you know what I mean. Wow, she was hot. Fire and ice." They devoured their food and drink. More toasts from tall, foamy mugs of ice-cold beer. "To Lucentville." "To Lucent Software Development Corp." "To Irene Stevens." "To life." "Fire and ice." At last, they finished their meals. Isaac rubbed his pepper and salt beard, then brushed back his close-trimmed hair. "How about some dessert?" inquired Isaac. Bruce rubbed his throbbing crotch where the cast rubbed against it, and his stitch had pulled out, and his pants were swollen with lust. "Dessert would be great," declaimed Bruce. "I'm famished." Fire and ice.
I meant to bring this up earlier. Bruce Lucent is maybe the best name I've ever heard in any book.
It's pretty great, and I love the repetition of him stroking his pepper and salt beard and swiping back his close-trimmed hair. It happens like 4 times, and like I didn't catch on until like the 3rd time, and I was like, oh my god, they're really doing it. It's great. But yeah.
This chapter was incredible because the first time I read it, I was like, I think that this is a parody of like really heavily metaphorical literary fiction. But then when you were reading it, I realized that it's a chapter devoted to what if people were a McDLT.
Hot on one side, cold on the other.
Exactly. And in a environment killing styrofoam container that keeps the hot side hot and the cold side cold. No, none of you listening are going to get this joke. This is a joke that I think legitimately only 40-year-olds and up who were aware of McDonald's in the early 80s will understand. But anyway, there was once a dish called the McDLT.
And it only worked because they were still packaging things in styrofoam. It wouldn't work with a paper. But yeah, all the hot stuff was all on one side of a little styrofoam divider, and the cold stuff was on the other side. So when you put it together, you had a shitty BLT that was two temperatures at once.
Yeah, so you had your hot patty, and you had to assemble your own dang sandwich. And if you're going to make yourself your own dang sandwich, why are you going to McDonald's in the first place? Am I right?
You want to know what's a really easy thing to make at home? A fucking BLT. Like, it's easier than driving and waiting in the drive-thru at McDonald's, to be quite honest. I'm just saying. Oh, anyway, yeah, that was my favorite chapter in the book by far.
That's incredible.
Since we're breaking from tradition and format here, I think we're gonna just kind of finish up this little segment of the show by just kind of reading some of our favorite parts, because I feel like we've really denied you by talking so much about the backstory, and there's really good stuff to be had here. So let's just round robin some good old fashioned quotes.
Round robin in all the right places.
Yeah, especially the cleavage.
Yeah. Okay, I forgive me. This is another slightly long one.
That's fine.
It's a couple longish paragraphs, but I think that they're important, and I think that you, the beloved listener, deserve this. Afterwards, she went back to their condo, her condo now, with the jacuzzi and his den and all the clothes and jewelry he'd bought her and all that high-class furniture and stuff. Henry had a thing for leather. Leather sofas, leather chairs, a leather mattress, for hell's sake, leather underwear, the leather whips and manacles, even a braided leather carpet that they'd made love on more than once.
Ew.
She'd have to clean out the den. Henry had not let her go in there for ages, maybe. There were bodies in there, like in Bluebeard. All the dismembered bodies of your maidens that he'd carried off and secretly ravaged before cruelly cutting them to bits. She'd stayed out of it, like he said, never once peeking into his den, so she still had all her bits, and then some. Amazing what they could do with silicone and saline these days. His den! Henry holed up in his den like a wild beast, hoarding his prey and coming out to hunt when he hungered for food or lusted for sex or thirsted for liquor or water or will or juice. The back to his den or out to hunt the lives and fortunes of other men or off to his wife, that abominable Callie Archer, who took up so much of his time. But he always came back for her athletic body and her wild sex, and her margarita and tequila sunrises, and omelets and steaks and chops, and their videotapes, the ones they recorded, by the hidden cameras in the bedroom when they made love like wild beasts, like penguins of the Sahara diving into the sand and running wildly after feasting on sand sharks. She envied those penguins, all that hot sand to swim through, the raspy grains sliding over their feathers as they hunted in wild packs, baying at the moon and diving deep, deep down into the dusty depths of the dry, smooth sand. What would penguin leather be like? Would it have lots of dense patterns of whorls where the feathers grew, like ostrich leather did? Perhaps she could have something made of penguin leather to remind her of Henry, a love seat, or a fine set of whips and straps. Perhaps she might travel to the Sahara some day to watch them from the tops of the pyramids, Mount Fujiyama off in the distance, duplicating the smooth, slanted sides of the pyramids. Oh, Henry, you jerk. Why didn't you ever take me places like that? Why didn't we travel instead of being cooped up in hiding in your den, rotting like penguins or ostriches or lions on the leather cushion and couches and chairs and rugs?
Oh, man. So, my piece is also about Henry, because it's worth noting, and we didn't mention this earlier, characters in this book die and then just reappear inexplicably.
I stand by my chapters were shuffled theory, for sure.
It's entirely possible.
This book is what we would call a non-linear experience, or what Stephen King called the Blue Oyster Cult Imaginos record. What he happened to call that record was a random access fable.
Ooh, or like Fingertips by They Might Be Giants. You put it on shuffle.
Well, I mean, this is a side note. I'm sorry to digress. Jay, have you ever noticed that rock critics like to listen to a concept album and then complain about how the story didn't make sense?
Yes, I have, actually.
That really bothers me, and I know I should let this one go, but I can't let it go, because it seems to me if that's the kind of thing you're doing, you might have failed to get on the good ship gets the point. You know?
It's just a hop and a jump to the candy shop, man.
No, I want to talk about this. I'm really upset.
Robert Christgau is really good at this. Christgau, however you say it, I always just see it written as Xgau, so I'm just going to call him Robert Xgau. He was really good at listening to concept albums and completely missing the mark in his reviews. Lots of examples out there if you want to read a really mean-spirited man talk about rock and roll. But anyway.
Side note about old Xgau, there's a cancellation coming for that particular gentleman.
Yeah.
I have receipts. Not really interested in talking about him, but all his stuff is on his website. And look up, say, any woman who's made rock music and read until your blood pressure spikes. It won't take you very long.
No, it won't. Even critically acclaimed albums like Liz Phair's Exile in Guyville. There are many things that old Xgau would rather talk about than the music on the album. Anyway.
Sorry, so are you going to talk about penguins? No, you're going to talk about Henry.
I'm going to talk about Irene, but she's talking about the hugest failure in her marriage to Henry. Forgive me, this is a bit long, too. I remember one night, the best night for us. He took me to Rome where we stood in the light of the Eiffel Tower and watched the people go by. There was one couple there who reminded us of us. There was another man Henry's age and another woman my age, and they were laughing together, just laughing. Hard. You know the way people laugh when they really feel the joy of life? The two of them laughing till the tears came down the sides of their face in great cascades, and I was a little worried that they would not be able to breathe, but Henry said, "Look at them, Irene, just look at them. Look at her and look at him. Look at them, the very themes of them. You know it's not a she and a him, but a them. Two of them together in one unit, laughing and laughing here in the city of brotherly love, their laughs echoing and echoing and echoing up and up and up, drowning out the traffic and the conversations of other tourists and the singing of the Christmas cajoler and even the motor noises filling the world. It was a lot of laughing, and me remember Harry squeezing my hands till the bones hurt and saying, I laughed like that once many years ago when I was a boy, and I don't remember the joke anymore, but I always wanted to laugh that way again, and sometimes when I take a good look at you, I think I have a chance." And I never thought of it again, but he also said that night, honey, I'm much older than you, and that means I'll be dead before you, and it will be worth dying even in a terrible car wreck, foreshadowing, if that means that between now and the moment of that car wreck, we laugh at least once, as hard as that couple walking by just now, though they were long past us by the time he got around to saying that. He said, "Make me laugh like that again, Irene." And I said, "Surely, but there was always the older man, younger woman thing, and as much as I thought of him as some kind of god, me never once got around to making him laughs." Twisting her hair into a braid using the same finger she had been using before, she said, "And now I will have to live my entire life, however long that turns out to be, knowing that I never gave him what he wanted. I made him come, but I never made him guffaw."
I mean, that goes from bad on purpose all the way around to good on purpose, Like,
I fought really hard for "I made him come, but I never made him guffaw" for "Are the Cold Open," but we decided against it. I think it's just because I love the word guffaw.
Right. Especially just in context, that is an inherently funny sentence. Also, I want to... something about this book that I don't love is that a lot of the quote-unquote humor is predicated on deliberate misspellings, typo-based jokes, and the like, because one of the things that this book-like artifact is designed to do is show up a lack of professionalism and a lack of editing on the part of this vanity press. That said... while I don't think those jokes are usually very funny, Christmas cajoler popped me. When I read that, I was like, okay, I got it. That you got me. That fucking rules.
It's good when they're funny. It's bad when it's just like a random typo thrown in, like an apostrophe where it doesn't belong or whatever. Like, who cares? But
which is a ton of them. A joke that won't come across that they do a bunch of times, and it's happened in at least one of my readings, I think it happened in yours too, is that there will be like a long section that's badly formatted. Like it'll be randomly indented, which I take to be a joke about Microsoft Word, and those I thought were always funny too.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, let's keep going. Do you have any more highlights?
Oh, I mean, do I? Actually, do I? I think I can. Why don't you come up with one, and I'll come up with one last one. Yeah.
Okay, here's a short one. "Hey now, I don't like that," Isaac said, and now he was mad at all of them for ruining his day. He was mad enough to hurt somebody. He'd killed a man before one time with his bare hands, and he could do it again if he put something in his bare hands, like a knife or a gun or something that he could kill somebody with.
I mean, I think I've talked about this before, but there's this, there's a John Oliver segment on wrestling where occasionally he stops talking about how bad their labor practices are to show something cool that, a wrestler did and just say, "This is objectively good. The thing I like is better than the thing you like." When it comes to a sentence like, "He'd killed before with his bare hands, and he could do it again if he put a knife or a gun in his hands." I'm sorry, that's better than anything you like.
It is. It's better than anything I could write on purpose. That's for sure. Okay, it's your turn now.
Okay. We've heard sentences you've never heard before. I'm going to get you to an image that I don't think has ever been written before or shown on television or, in a movie or on stage.
I'm ready.
Callie, it's not what you think, Henry exclaimed as he stood still, slick with the heat of his passion dripping water like he'd just hopped out of the pool, but Callie knew it was sweat because it was so hot and his hair wasn't wet. "You take me for an idiot?" she asked. The woman nodded and giggled as she sauntered toward the floral Indian pink and green dress she'd thrown over the bar, colors that with that red hair were bound to look hideous. What could Henry have seen in her? She had freckles and looked like she hadn't even tried to cover them, and her hips were a little too wide. She looked like a good brood mare, but not like a thoroughbred. Callie was a thoroughbred, sleek, finely muscled, soft where she needed to be, powerful where she needed to be. Now Callie noticed the empty wine bottle upended in the coal car of a train, the empty glasses set in one of the empty grain cars, so that if he flicked a switch, it could run out to the kitchen. Their clothes were scattered, tossed all over the patio and deck furniture and bar.
Wait. This guy has a Pee-wee's Playhouse train to deliver wine to his makeout room?
Oh, hell yeah.
Nice.
His poolside makeout room. His outdoor room, even. But that's not the image that I don't think you've seen before. That's in this sentence, my friend. The woman fished a hot pink bra out of the swimming pool with the skimmer, maneuvering the pole like a pro, and acting as if she hadn't noticed Henry and Callie. Like, that is some Harmony Korine shit right there.
That absolutely is, yeah. That's like straight out of Gummo.
That's fucking incredible. I am shocked that there was not a scene that showed that in Spring Breakers. Like, I'm only halfway through The Beach Bum, but if there's not a scene in the back half of it, Harmony's getting an email from me.
Don't do that.
That's all I'm saying.
Do not communicate with Harmony Korine, please, for your own good. Did I ever tell you about the time, there's a little digression here. Kids came out when I was about 16 or 17. Me and all my friends were skate rats in Sarasota, Florida. We were skateboard kids skating around the town. We decided we were going to go to this is Sarasota, so there's only one art house movie theater with 2 screens. They played like 2 movies at once. We're like, let's go see a movie. Oh, this movie, Kids, I heard this is pretty good. So we went in and watched the movie, and of course, if you've seen Kids, it's all about like skate rat type kids being morally repugnant. And like on the way out of the movie, we all left like holding our skateboards while older people glared at us like we were scum of the earth. It was really, really shaming. Anyway. And I swear, we were nice kids, too. We just liked to skateboard. I mean, but whatever. Okay.
We just wanted to take in a matinee and enjoy some nice air conditioning.
Yeah, it's really hot out there in the summer, and there's only so many times you can fall off when you're trying to grind an 8-stair, so, yeah. Okay, here's another one for me. I'm going to editorialize a little bit here and cut out something a bit distasteful, but here we go. She leisurely drank from her gin and tonic again. Irina, he pontificates, you are the daughter of Isaac Stevens. I will reveal your dark secret to your father. No, exclaimed she, horror-struck. Yes, grated he, harshly. You will not, expostulated she. I will reveal your dark secret, exclaimed he. I will not allow you, she avowed. You will, he averted. No, you won't reveal my dark secret, threatened she, numbly. My father will never believe you. I will, and he will, exhorted her. You won't be mad, and he won't, claimed he. I will, and he will, remonstrated he. You won't, explained she in an explanatory tone of voice. My father will be very, very, very furious with you. He will certainly blame you. I will, and he won't, demonstrated he contemptuously. You won't, and he will, proclaimed her, definitely. I will, and he won't, declared he, defiantly. You won't, denounced her angrily. I already told him last Tuesday.
Third base!
Guys, everybody out there, folks, it's okay to say the word said when you're writing. I just wanted to point that out. No matter what that masterclass you paid $29.99 for on Facebook told you, it's okay to use the word said.
That was not an example of good banter. There were a couple of bits of back and forth banter that I thought actually did have kind of a nice zippy soap opera, kind of edge. But that one was like, Jesus Christ, that was like having somebody hold up flashcards of the, who's on first sketch, but hold them up slightly too slowly. So you're just like, oh God, how much longer can this possibly go on?
You got any more?
Well,
One more each. Let's do one more each and then call it.
I think that's good. So I'm going to let you pick which one I do. Would you like to hear about some sexity, sex times at a wedding?
Oh, I already know which one I'm picking, but yeah.
Or would you like to hear a little bit about a doctor confronted with the sight of feet?
Oh man, this is tough. This is really tough. But as longtime listeners know, feet gross me out, so I'm going to go with the sexy sex time, even though I know it also involves feet.
Fair enough. Okay. Coming? I asked, holding up a corner of the tablecloth. Taking a quick glance around the room, I saw that only a bemused waiter, who was holding his champagne bottle at the ready, was watching us. All the other guests were too involved with the dress drama to give our portion of the room a gander. Without looking to see if he would follow, I crawled under the table. Fortunately, the cream carpeting was very thick. Now I'd see what he was made of. If he was as stuffed as his shirt, he would probably beat a quick retreat from such a silly situation. I held my breath for a few moments. Just as I was starting to feel really foolish, I heard him enter our little domain from the rear. He was awkwardly clutching a nearly full bottle of champagne. "Now, what exactly are we looking for?" he asked with a grin. "Oh, just a little golden O," I say. "It's got a bit of green emerald, just like my eyes." I batted my eyelashes at him, in case he had somehow failed to notice my startlingly beautiful color. Encouraged by his attention, I continued. "First, we pat the rug," I say. Kicking off my slingbacks, I run my feet seductively over the carpet and all around his pant leg. To his credit, Richard immediately took off his shoes and socks and began running his toes through the lush carpeting. "So what do we do when this doesn't work?" he asked. "Well, we can start crawling around for it, looking for it on hands and knees," I say. Taking care not to bump my head on the bottom of the table, I yet again favored him with a view of my pert derriere. Leaving his shoes behind... That's gonna be a ringtone, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
fuck. Leaving his shoes behind, he clambered onto his own hands and knees and followed me around. "Oh," I say, "feel here." I move his hand just over my knee. "Is that something we should be looking into further?" I ask. "I don't know," he responds, fondling my knee in earnest. "Let me see if I can find the gold." "Let me see what I can feel," he whispers, moving his hands up from my knees to run over my hips, then my tummy. They come to rest on the points of my push-up bra. He rubs his fingers in concentric circles around my breasts. I haven't had such a thorough feel since my last gyno exam, and Richard's hands are mercifully warm. His tongue reaches up to caress my ear. I can feel him nibble around the diamonds in my lobe. Unable to resist, I say, "But what about my navel ring?" One hand leaves my breast and tries to find a way to enter my skin-tight dress. When he can't find an easy entry, he reaches up under the skirt and pinches my belly button. "Your navel feels perfect without ornamentation," he whispers breathily in my ear.
You gonna stop there? Or?
No, I'm going to read 2 more sentences, and I'm very sorry. I struggle slightly, wondering when I lost the upper hand in this seduction. My foot hits the champagne bottle, and cold bubbly spills over, adding a tingly sensation to my toes. As his hand has now slipped from my navel to my love shack, I'm in no position to do more than wiggle.
Sorry. You see a little sign by the side of the road. It says, all right, sorry.
Love Shack. Yep, exactly.
Yeah, baby, that's where it's at.
You know, Jay, people may ask, fellas, is that the only instance of the phrase Love Shack in this book? And I say thee nay. Nay, 'tis not the only instance of the phrase Love Shack in this book.
And none of them are B-52's quotes.
Love, baby, that's where it's at.
Oh, man. Wow. Bang, bang, bang on the door, baby. Beep, beep. I can't hear you. Sorry. One of my favorite things to do is just to like imagine every song as sung by Fred Schneider. It's really entertaining. Especially if it's like a hardcore song without much of a melody, like a spoken word song or something. I don't know. Or just a shouty song. Like, I'm trying to think of a shouty song lots of people would be familiar with. Like, maybe like a Limp Bizkit song where it's like, it's just one of those days when you don't want to wake up. Like, that kind of shit. It's great. All right, anyway.
He had a minor solo hit called Monster in My Pants.
Oh, I remember the video for that.
And when I was in high school, the local PBS station had an alternative music video program that they would show on Saturdays and Sundays, and I, of course, would watch it. And I saw this video and became moderately amused by the song and always wanted to go to confession and say, "Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. There's a monster in my pants, and he does a little dance." And then I imagined the priest would just reach out, pull the lever, the trapdoor would open, and I would go straight to hell.
Well, say hi to Bill and Ted for me.
Yeah. Do you have another selection, or another dripping slice of this book you'd like to tease our lips with?
I do, but it's nowhere near as sexy, and there's unfortunately, no opportunities for a Fred Schneider impression. But
well, not with that attitude.
Okay, I'll just do the whole thing as Fred Schneider. The waiter walked over to their table and brought another martini for Yvonne with a shot glass of extra vodka on the side. No, I can't keep this up. I did not order extra vodka, said Yvonne impatiently. She was mad from the conversation with her friend Penelope, who all the men seemed to be attracted to. Her cheeks were flaming red fires like a volcano ready to explode through the cold emerald stones that were her eyes. She knew Penelope thought she drank too much. The waiter said, "I am sorry, miss, but we are out of cocktail onions, and the chef has sent this instead with his compliments." Yvonne stood up and walked over to the waiter and took the shot glass full of vodka and poured it in a planter that held a spindly rubber tree that never got enough light to grow properly, even though it was near one of the windows that looked out onto the lake where some ducks were floating like they were waiting for someone to throw them some bread, but there was no one there at this time of day. And then she saw a little sign by the side of the road. It said, 15 miles to the Love Shack. All right.
Is this our first episode with dueling Fred Schneider impressions?
It might be. I don't know.
I think the question the listeners are probably asking is, please God, can it be the last?
Probably.
Oh, hell no.
My favorite B-52 songs are the ones where Fred Schneider was completely superfluous, like Rome.
You mean
where
all
it's
of
just,
them?
Well, I mean, not all of them. Like, some of them he definitely had the lead voice, but like songs like Rome, amazing pop songs, two-part female vocal harmony, just really, really great stuff. And then in the background he'd be like, "Yeah, Rome, if you want to." I don't know. I love that shit.
Yeah, you definitely, if you're me, want your Fred Schneider in the mixed position to be more of your Flavor Flav.
I was just thinking of that. Yeah, it's like everyone skips the song where Flavor Flav is on lead, And unfortunately, with the B-52s, their Flava Flav occupied most of the spotlight.
I mean, let's break it down. Welcome to the Terror Dome. 5 minutes. Fucking awesome. Can't do nothing for you, man. About 220. Feels like it would be better if it were about 150.
Yeah,
You know?
I could entirely enjoy a Public Enemy record with no Flavor Flav, no problem. So, unless it was just him going, yeah, boy, right before the verse kicks in, and that's about it.
I think you're also missing the important element of Public Enemy. How could you love that record if there weren't somebody in the background yelling his own name periodically?
Good point. I mean, that goes for a lot of hip-hop from that era, though. So, whatever. Nothing will ever beat Noriega's Super Thug. Just want to point that out. One of the best songs in the world, because the chorus is just literally a guy going offbeat. What? All right, anyway. Digression over.
I think in like 2014 there was some like weird ask some Republican luminary a question, and I achieved about as close to virality as I ever got by asking him, "Homeboy, I came to party. Your boys were looking at me, or your girl was looking at me," and finished it out until I finished the 140 characters. So that's another good Noriega moment. This, of course, has been our most popular segment, remembering some stuff about Noriega years after the fact.
I especially also like that, like, kind of after he fell off the radar, Rick Ross had to make sure you knew in his song, I know Pablo Noriega, the real Noriega. It's like, no, I'm not talking about the guy with the chain that looks like a pack of Newports, which Noriega actually had, and look it up if you hadn't. It's amazing. It's like a bejeweled pack of Newports on a giant dookie rope. It's amazing. I'm feeling like we should maybe take a break now.
The man knew what he liked. I'm down to take a break.
Yo, we light a candle, run laps around the English Channel. Neptune's got a Cocker Spaniel. We're back. I had to do that because the Cocker Spaniel line was on the tip of my tongue and I couldn't remember it. This is the end of the show. We're going to recommend things, and then we're going to read some letters. Let's start out with recommending things.
It's hard to believe this is the end of the show, Jay. What evidence do you have that maybe we should wrap it up?
I'm rapping Noriega lyrics. Maybe that's a good idea.
I think that's a great idea.
All right. So, we're also going really long. So, here's the recommendation song.
Not only venom and spite, sometimes with sweetness and light, and we always end the episode by telling you about a thing we like. Recommendations.
All right, let's recommend some stuff. Maybe some stuff that isn't bad on purpose. Collision, would you like to go first?
Yeah. I don't know if I recommended this already. But either way, if I didn't, I'm going to recommend it again. It is a Florida noir. It is called, not River of Grass, although that is another Florida noir that is very good, but it's called Sun Don't Shine. And it is the directorial debut. The less said, the better. Just kind of get into it, watch it. It's got some really cool moments and great performances, and was made for less than some people spend on a car. I really liked it a lot. It took me to a place I hadn't been, a place I hadn't visited, and took me some emotional places I didn't expect to go. So, Sun Don't Shine. It's a movie, and it's real good.
Awesome. Okay, so first of all, I'd like to recommend not writing in to correct us that Sting and Malcolm McDowell were actually the voice of Zarm, the villain from Captain Planet, and not the titular captain himself. So please don't do that. And then
That makes so much more sense, though.
Yeah, it does. And then I'm also going to recommend a series of books, which I believe you can now buy in one collection, which I kind of avoided for a long time because the name sounded kind of stupid to me, and I didn't really like it. But The Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells are really, really entertaining science fiction books about kind of an android with an electronic brain that's supposed to be controlled to be a security bot, but she's disrupted her own governing module, and now she has feelings and stuff. And her feelings are basically Daria. So it's like a blasé robot that like develops feelings for her crew and feels the need to kind of protect them, but is still like an android with superpowers and isn't aware of her own strength, and lots of exciting things happen. The first 2 or 3 are novellas, so they're cheap and they're short. And I would really recommend reading the first one, All Systems Red. If you like it, you'll like all the rest of them, and it's really good. It's the first sci-fi book I've read in a long time that I felt had new and exciting ideas. Plus, I just really like the voice of the main character, Murderbot. So there you go.
That's very cool. Can I do a supplemental recommendation just in case I've previously recommended Sun Don't Shine?
Sure.
I'm late to this by a couple of years, but the second season is about to come out. By the time you hear this, it may already be out. But I've been watching with my lady Noodles the show Pen 15, and it is great. Sorry. Let me rephrase that. We've been watching the show Pen 15. Pause for laughter. And it's super great. It is disguised as a comedy about 2 13-year-old girls. But what it really is one of the most interesting examinations of friendship and friends being differently synced in terms of their relationship and their development as people. And it has, I think, a lot of interesting things to say about the ways that friendships can be both good and bad. And there's also a huge amount of body humor, if that's your thing. So it's fucking hilarious, but it's also horrifying and great in all the best ways that a smart comedy can be. And again, I'm late to it, but it's great, and everybody should watch it. And it's called Pen 15.
Cool. Awesome. So, we didn't do this last time. We had some technical difficulties. So this time, we're going to do it. Sometimes people write to us. Sometimes we read them. Here's the letter song.
A, letter B, letter C, letter D, letter E, letter F, letter G, letter, got a lot of letters.
By the way, we read the letters, not the people.
We're going to read the people. We're going to read them to filth. No, we're not going to do that. Okay, so this is from a writer named Erica, fake last name. It is called Trenton Makes the World... Tastes?
Huh?
Greetings, gentlemen. Longtime listener as well as longtime Party Pit member and supporter. I was listening to the first Dachshund Through the Snow episode, and my ears perked up at the mention of it being set in New Jersey. I'm a lifelong resident. Until recently. I'm in Connecticut now, but can get into that later. And for the last 8 years, have lived pretty close to Trenton. Clsn mentioned the... Trenton.
Get it right or pay the price.
Oh, sorry. Trenton.
There you go.
Trenton?
Oh, that's even better. I'm calling it that from now on.
Clsn mentioned the locally known Trenton Makes Bridge, and I was initially determined to get a cool picture of that to send over, until my fiancée informed me of what is in the attached picture. It's from our favorite fried chicken / gyro place, Prince Fried Chicken, and when we were there last week, I can't get good fried chicken in Connecticut to save my life, I had him get a picture for me to pass along for your amusement. I've also included a picture of the actual Trenton Makes Bridge, but from the other side because that's the direction I was coming from yesterday. Speaking of yesterday, and so there were some good pictures, and there's this amazing picture of a bridge in the background and kind of a graffiti font that says Trenton Makes the World Tastes next to like a little cartoon hot chicken. So it's very cute.
Oh, that's awesome. Trenton Makes the World Tastes chicken. Not sure I entirely get it, but that sounds cute.
Yeah. My fiance and I were aimlessly driving around yesterday and stopped at a Wawa in Ewing, New Jersey, which is a suburb of Trenton.
Okay, could any phrase be more New England than that? I just wanted to call that out.
The next sentence in parentheses, that might be the most New Jersey sentence I've ever written.
Perfect.
So,
we're in sync.
Same wavelength. While discussing what our plans were for the evening, we heard a noise. A noise that sounded vaguely familiar to both of us, but for different reasons. He heard the Gibby Haynes vocals from Ministry's Jesus Built My Hot Rod. I, however, heard Clsn doing his impression of Gibby Haynes' vocals from Ministry's Jesus Built My Hot Rod. Turns out, it was a guy screaming at the sky, so I think we were both right.
Yep, that's pretty much what they sound like. Oh, thank you so much for writing in. That was really great.
Yeah, she finishes, I didn't plan to let this email get so long, but then the inadvertent Ministry song came up yesterday and had to include that as well. Take care and ride the crab over the Trenton Makes Bridge.
Cool.
Erica, fake last name.
Cool. Thank you, Erica. Now I'm never going to be able to think of Gibby Haynes without thinking of him like just ripped out of his mind on acid, yelling at the sky like ding a ding a dang a dang a dung dung. So awesome.
Make it up by the wow.
Oh boy.
I don't know about you, but that letter was like a little blast of New Jersey sunshine straight into my heart.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. It was Garden State for sure. I believe that letter changed my life.
So yeah, that's pretty much all I got. Thank you so much for writing in. If you would like to write us, you can do it at I don't even own a television @gmail.com. If, like Erica, you want to hang around in the I don't even own a television fun time party pit on Facebook, just search for that on Facebook. You'll find the group, answer a couple of easy questions about not being a jerk, and I will admit you to the group and you can have at it with a community of like-minded bad book likers and crab writers and pet picture posters and so forth. If you'd like to help us continue to do the show in these difficult times, if you have the time, energy, and otherwise wherewithal to do so, you can by helping us out on Patreon, by contributing a little bit of money every month. To make it up to you, we give you a little bonus content if you contribute at the $5 a month or more level. But you can contribute at any level. There's a whole lot of stuff over there, whether or not you contribute. That's patreon.com/IDEOTVpod. And you can also just rate and review the show on your podcast place of gettage of choice.
Gettage.
Gettage.
My favorite Descendants song.
I was gonna say I'm auditioning to be the backup bass player and roadie for a Descendants cover band, so I'm trying to get my lingo up to snuff. But of course, I think the best thing you can do if you want to help out the show is pick your most easily bullyable friend and just mercilessly browbeat them until they have no choice but to give in and listen to the show.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. Beat up your friends.
Do you have a younger sibling? They're usually like for a few years anyway, kind of easy targets.
Yeah, it's true. I got into punk rock from like older kids I knew, so why don't you be like a less cool version of them and get them into a book podcast?
Remember the old like Gary Larson cartoons that would always have like a guy opening his trench coat to show his seedy, disreputable wares?
Yeah.
Imagine if it was just a bunch of podcasts in there. Huh?
Yeah.
That's a Photoshop somebody could make.
You know what you could do? You could just stand somewhere randomly when people walk by and go, vampire? Comedy callback. All right, everyone, thank you so much for listening. And we will be back sometime in the near future. We're definitely loosening up the schedule a little bit. Sorry for the long delay between the last episode or before the last episode. Hopefully won't be that long again, but you know, we all need to recharge our batteries sometimes because things are weird. So yeah, we'll be back shortly. And until then, I don't know. Geez, how do you fit a crab pun in with this without just being horrible?
Well, I would say check out the crab's heaving bosoms and then ride it into those hot Atlanta nights, Jay.
Oh, geez. I was going to say order a crab at a fancy restaurant with a French name. All right.
But only if they'll let you eat outside.
Goodbye, everyone. We love ya. Later.
Bye.